Welcome! In this part of the training, I will be taking you on the process of sterilization of our substrate bags. You've already gone through the process of preparing the substrate bags, but this is another stage of the process. This is where you are to subject those bags to intense supply of heat. This is done to kill every living organisms, microorganisms, germs, dirt, whatsoever that are contained in the substrate, because they will not allow the mushroom spawn, which is the seed, to ramify in the bags. They would prevent the mycelium from spreading, that is ramifying. So that is why we need to subject them to intense heat. Sterilization is just one of the many ways one can remove these unwanted organisms. You can also do pasteurization. Depends on what is available to you, but it is mostly advisable to sterilize because the organisms would not be able to tolerate heat. Using this method would make your work a fruitful one. Right here in this video, I am using an iron drum, as you can see, a gas cylinder, as you can also see, and the heat source. You can decide to adopt the local way of using firewood, depending on what is available to you and looking at the cost of the materials. If gas is very expensive in your area, you might need to go for firewood. There are also the standard equipment to be used, which is called an autoclave. An autoclave is what is you find them in the laboratories, science laboratories. They are very expensive, and for one who wants to practice mushroom cultivation at home, you may not be able to afford that. But this is a substitute or an alternative to the autoclave. It does the same work perfectly. As you can see right now, this bag, this nylon and sacks are what will be used inside the tank and outside the tank for the heating process. You spread the sacks at the edge of the tank inside, because you don't want the substrate bag nylon to come in contact with the iron of the that's the iron tank, else the nylon will tear because of the heat. So you spread the sacks inside before you even add the bags. After spreading the sack, you need to put a layer, either before spreading the sack or after. You need to put something at the base of the drum to lift the substrate bag from contacting the floor of the drum of the tank. So you put some wood or iron depending on what you have. I use iron. I have some iron rod I put downwards, and then I spread a trail on top the iron. Then you add little quantity of water. The measurement would be half of the first layer of the iron drum. Looking inside the iron drum, you would see some layers, and if you don't find the layers, looking outside, you would see some layers. Divide that layer into 3 parts depending on how wide your layer may be. The essence of doing that is to be able to pour some water above the floor of the tank, and then below the trail in which you will position your substrate bags on. You don't want the substrate bags to be soaked in the water, and still you need the water inside the tank, because it is the water that will boil and then sterilize everything inside the drum. Yes, we are adding the water now. We would be adding the water. Yes, you can see. You check after adding the first portion of the water to see if it has gotten to the it has gotten to a good level in which will last in the drum, because the water shouldn't get dried before the sterilization time is up. The water has to be able to stay in the drum for about 5 to 7 hours, which the fire will be on. Sometimes could be as long as 10 hours, but you can go for between 5 to 7 hours of steady supply of heat. Steady supply of heat. When counting the hours, you don't count the first 1 hour after you have turned on the lights, because at that stage the tank would have not gotten hot. The tank will get hot only about 1 hour after you turned on the lights. So you start counting after 1 hour. The sterilization process is very easy. Using this iron tank helps you to be able to sterilize large quantity of the substrate bags depending on your size of the bag, the size of the nylon you have used. The aim is to ensure that the heat spreads round to everything inside the tank. Oyster mushroom cultivation is an interesting process. You can do this at the comfort of your home, unlike the cultivation of green plants, where you need sometimes large area of land aside those into soilless farming like hydroponics. You can see the inside of the tank, see the trail. Underneath that trail are some iron rods. Looking at the water level, I will still adjust the trail to be a little bit above the water level, or you can decide to reduce the water level, because you don't want the bags to get soaked in the water. So this other bag I'm spreading inside would help to also lift the bags above the water level, and it will help to shield the bags from having contact with the iron of the tank, this body of the tank, which you must be careful about. Once it gets contact with the tank, the heat affects the nylon, it expands, and then it tears. By the time you finish the sterilization, you will find out that the sawdust have poured out into the tank. You work with what you have available. In a situation whereby you want to produce in a very, very large scale, you may have to get 2, 3, or 4, 5 drums of this size or bigger than this. You set up your eating stand, and then you do the same process for everything. But it is advisable, when starting your mushroom farm, it is advisable that you start on a small scale. When you have started, you've learned from the process. Over time, you can now increase your production. By the time you start small, you will learn from your processes, your mistakes, which will help you when you go into large scale production. Right now, I'm about sealing up or closing up the tank. This must be properly done before you light the fire, or else your sterilization process will not go well. You need to look out for every opening. You must ensure you seal up every opening, because you want to conserve the heat. You want to see that the heat stays within the tank, and there is no point for letting out the heat from the nylon. You need a rope to tie this nylon that you have used to cover the tank. You need a strong rope, not just any rope. You need a rope that can withstand heat. Not an elastic kind of rope. No, you can use any strong rope that does not expand when it comes in contact with heat. Next, you have to fold up every part of the nylon that are towards the level of the fire, that is the base of the tank. You will not want the nylon to come in contact with the fire, else this can cause a fire accident while your sterilization process is on. So you would fold up every part of the nylon. You can see the way I folded the nylon to prevent fire accidents. So right now I'm turning on the gas cylinder at the control, and you ensure you stretch the cylinder to be far from the sterilizing chamber. Very soon we will turn on the lights, we will turn on the fire. Turning on the fire, you need either a long lighter that has a pointed mouth that can be stretched towards the outlet of the fire source, or you use an alternative like the one I am using. That is a folded newspaper which I dipped into a bottle of kerosene. I am about to light the fire now, after which I would leave the fire to burn for about 7 hours.